Welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and we continue our election series, and I am so grateful for everyone. Darlene's here with me again. You have always so gracious with your time.
Love coming here. I'm so glad we're in the studio.
Right? Yay! Right?
Thanks to the crew and everybody. It's great.
Yeah, everybody's working really hard and keeping safe and practicing all the things that we need to, because we are physically in the studio in the high school. Yep. So I know on camera we appear without masks, but of course when we're entering the building or anywhere outside the studio, we're following all the protocols.
I know the rules. I've gotten them in the email. I have a 17-year-old who's a senior, so
I'm
well versed.
Down. Well, I love it. I love it. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry we didn't connect this summer.
You know what, the summer like breezed by, so this is perfect timing. And I'm really excited about this election series because I think it gives us an opportunity. Darlene, before we were filming, we were just talking about how do we make sure the community knows who to reach out to and how to talk with people and gets information out. And you always make yourself so accessible to me and to others, but I don't know that everybody always knows to do that. So this is a great opportunity to help people get to know you even better.
People, I have stressed this for as long as I've been in office, and I've been in office for a very long time. I am always available by phone 24 hours a day. And I don't say that lightly because I have had people call me at 2 a.m. in the morning when the beep, 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 when they live near an industrial area is going on because we're trying to solve the problem together. Okay. Or there was an instance years ago over in Dragon Court where there was some flooding going on. I went out it was 1 a.m. I had my pajamas on and a raincoat. The former chief of police still makes fun of me.
You threw the raincoat on first, so that was good.
I did, but he still, I haven't seen him in years, Chief Mahoney, but he used to make fun of me all the time about that. So I am available. My number is on the website. It's 774-259-6132. That's my cell phone number. I always have it with me because I have children and I have constituents and my husband.
He gets a little bit of attention.
So I encourage people to call me. Oftentimes people will send me emails and I'll reply back to them, please send me your number, because it is much easier to have a conversation on the phone and we can get things done quicker, especially if they're having a problem, an immediate problem that needs solving. That is the best way to reach me. And I have Facebook, and occasionally people will messenger me that way. Yep. And it dings, so I know, because I don't go onto Facebook all the time.
You're not addicted like I am?
I'm so not. I am, you know, I was looking at the questions you sent me, and you said, what is something people don't know about you? And this sort of leads into that. I am actually a very private person. I do a very public job, but I don't share a lot of things out in the world about my kids or my family or my brothers and sisters, and when we're having first communions or celebrations or any of it. I just, even before social media, that's just not something I did unless I knew you personally and we were having a one-on-one conversation. So I guess I'm sort of a dinosaur, a 57-year-old dinosaur who's still trying to find her way. And what I need to do is spend more time, I guess, on the politics piece on Facebook and try to, I sort of mix them up and maybe I should hire you to help me with that.
I'll do a lot of things for a hot chocolate, let me tell you. Throw marshmallows in and you get all the free marketing documents. But you know,
the reality is I'm a very private person, but I love people and I love to help people. And there's nothing that works better than a phone call or a face-to-face. And sometimes people will call and say, well, can you come down and meet me? And I'm like, sure, just tell me where. Yeah. So that's still the best way. And you know, I'm trying to evolve more into those other things, and I'm making progress, right?
Yeah, you know, I think we were first introduced through Facebook or such in the initial conversation. So, you know, look, I'm an oversharer.
It was a messenger.
It was a messenger, right?
Yes, yes.
So, and much to Jeff Dillon, who happens to be my city councilor's chagrin, instead of calling him, even though I have his phone number and he's so gracious, I always send him Facebook messages. Yep. And he's wonderful and always responds to them. But I think I always tell people, you don't have to share, you just have to listen. Right. And all of the things we're doing, like chatting today, is a great opportunity for people to listen and learn. And you're so gracious to show up in your pajamas with a raincoat on. And I promise I will never call you at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I did have the raincoat on. And to the point about listening, although I don't put a lot of things out there on social media, I'm very much aware of what is happening on social media. That's my responsibility to know whether it's happening on streaming or social media or the newspapers or Patch or here in the schools, and reading the meeting minutes for other meetings that I am not responsible for going to, but certainly need to know what's going on. So
I want to talk about this for a second, because this is really interesting. You brought this up, and I think it's important for us. When you look back to when you first ran for city council and wanted to serve the community to where you are today, tell me a little bit about what's changed.
Aside from the wrinkles?
Yeah. What wrinkles? What are you talking about?
What's changed? For me, not a lot, because I do the job the same way today that I did it then. First of all, I love this city. And no matter what happens in this city, no matter what we build, no matter how many, how many malls we reconfigure or new stores that come our way, or the one thing that is consistent is the people that live here. And we are such a diverse community. We've been a diverse community since I grew up here. I graduated from class of '82, and that is what makes me want to do this job all the time, because of the people I interact with. And my philosophy has been the same since the day I ran for office, because I was a community activist and got involved and was very frustrated that I couldn't get basic information. No matter what level of government I called, it was well, let me connect you to so-and-so, and let me connect you to so-and-so. And I said, that's just ridiculous. And I maneuvered my way through it. I had the time because I was home with my children. I was trying out the stay-at-home mom thing, thank goodness, because I wouldn't have had the time, right? So that was one of the things that got me involved in government. And I said from the day I got elected, when somebody calls me, I might not be able to tell them what they want to hear, but I will always tell them the truth, and I will always, always make sure they get the answer. It might not be what they like, but they will get an answer. And I've done that since the day I was elected. So that has not changed. What has changed? Honestly, I don't think a lot has changed. Some of the developments have gotten bigger, but the way in which we look at them is the same. We're supposed to judge them based on what they bring to the community. And I don't mean tax dollars. I mean all the things that they bring to the community. So that's changed a little bit in terms of the size. Aside from that, not much has changed.
So let's talk about what should change. So I love Woburn. I am a transplant here, but I've been here now 25 years. So this is absolutely home to me. I've spent as much time in Woburn as outside Woburn in my life, and we'll be here a lot longer. And I think there's amazing things and traditions and so many things about this community that I truly adore and I feel very grateful for. I feel very grateful I lived in a city where my kids played with our neighbors and rode bikes across the street, and there were 3 families in particular that were really close, and that I can call the school and the principal answers the phone and knows who I am, and the school nurse took care of all my babies.
And that doesn't happen in many communities.
Right? We're so fortunate for so many of those things. But I also look back and think, wow, 25 years, I've changed a lot. My business has changed a lot. Our community has changed. What are some things that as you look forward to the challenges that lay ahead and the opportunities that lay ahead, you're excited to keep you motivated and keep serving the community?
So just rewind just for a second. So when I said things haven't changed, so the mechanisms and the way that the city council, the way we do our business hasn't changed, because all of that's basically based on laws, and we have to follow those guidelines, right? And some of the petitions have changed, they've gotten bigger. What needs to change? Is that the question? What do I think needs to change?
It either needs to change or an opportunity we have to grow. And I don't mean physical footprint grow and infrastructure yet, although we will talk about infrastructure. More just in terms of how we engage in the community, what's important to us, anything. Like you see so much, you talk to so many people, not just in your ward, but across the city, right?
I think so now that I understand the question, I think I think it's time for Woburn to figure out if we still want to be Woburn the way we know it. And Woburn the way we know it has much to do, 80% to do with the people that live here. So I think that conversation really needs to happen, and that can happen in a variety of ways when it comes to government, right? It can happen in planning, right? More consistent planning. And I know we have a master plan, but I'm not sure how much we've really stayed true to it. I have particular concerns about the size of some of the housing projects that we have approved, and necessarily so. People say, well, why do we need so many? There is a dire need for housing. But I think, and I said this 8 years ago, I said, we need to be careful. The balance between housing that is all rental and housing that is just single family and housing that, there is a very delicate balance. And I was concerned then, and I'm still concerned that the scales have tipped. And you know, some of the buildings that have gone up recently, I've had people call me and say, gosh, I hope those are condos. I have a daughter, I have a son, and they want to live here in Woburn, and they would love to take a look at the Woburn Villages is one of them. I had 5 phone calls from people who had kids that just got out of college or kids who've been out of college for a few years that are looking to purchase. Sorry, that's not what those are. Sorry, that's not what Cabot Road is. Sorry, that's not what, there's a need for that. But I think we have filled that
By the way,
need.
I feel that personally very
Yep.
much. I have adult children at this point, some more financially independent than others, and one in particular is went right from high school to work and has been saving money for a down payment. There is no way today they can buy in Woburn, and that breaks my heart that it's not an option. They might not have chosen to, but
Right.
they would like to, and they're certainly looking. Now, things will change, they're not in a hurry,
Yeah.
but the sentiment of having available options for people, I definitely feel very personally. I want him
Right.
to be able to make that choice.
Right, and and that's a different conversation, right? That's about,
Okay.
is Woburn affordable? So that's different, right? I'm talking about
Or
making
even inventory there.
Right. So
Yeah.
so I don't think there's enough inventory there. That has a lot to do with people like me who are still in my home. I'm 57, and you know, I'm not
We're
ready.
not kicking
I'm
you
not,
out.
I'm
We're
not
not
ready.
kicking you out.
Ask my kids, can we buy the house? I'm like, no, you can't. So it has a lot to do with inventory, but it has also a lot to do. This city could say no to some of these big developments. We could say, you know what? I know it's zoned for that, but that doesn't mean you couldn't build these things. And we as government need to start addressing some of those things through rezoning. The problem with that is when you start to rezone things, then people use the law to freeze the zoning. So you get into, it's a fine dance, right? But that is one way we can address it. In terms of the affordability, Samantha, when my parents bought the house on Richard Circle, they paid, I think, $48,000 for it, right? By the time my husband and I bought it, it was well over that, right? Right?
Yep.
So, and by the time my children or somebody else buys it, it's going to be well over what we paid for it. And, you know, that's just the nature of real estate. In this country, people build their wealth. Most people, not the guys on Wall Street, right? But people like you and I build your wealth through the first purchase of your first home, and you build equity in it, and you use it to help pay for your kids to go to college or buy another house or go to the Caribbean, who knows? But that's how most Americans build their wealth. So if we don't have an opportunity for our children and our children's children to do that, right? So as government officials, as leaders, you're a leader in this community, we have a responsibility to make sure that that housing is available too. But what's happened, that I've seen happen, is the state is saying, no, 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 we need more affordable housing, we need more rental, and people are coming from the city, and they're coming to live here because the $3,000 apartment a month apartments are less than the $6,000 a month apartments in Seaport, right?
They sure are.
Right, but that's...
And we have a pirate.
And it's...
right?
So we're taking on that burden, and that's great. We're providing an opportunity for people to have a place to live, but as I said before, the scales have tipped too far, and we as a city need to figure out how to address it.
So let's talk a little bit about that. That's really, like, it's easy to say and really hard to do.
It is. I've been saying it for 8 years.
Right? And you talked about a couple of things that could affect it. So one is, as new projects are coming in, we have the option within the law to say yes or no.
Right.
You talked about potentially rezoning some parts of our city, and I know nothing about it except that it's hard and complex, and there's a lot of things on there. How does the city council, and how will you in particular help us frame that vision for us as a city? I think, to your point, it's been an ongoing challenge, right? And this last year and a half, we've all, as a world, been distracted by the pandemic. So a lot of things that we might have done around planning we're just, have all these other urgent priorities. But we should be able to get back to thinking forward again this next cycle. Tell us what we should be doing.
Well, I mean, right off the top of my head, I think that it's important when you're going out to vote, for instance, that you understand the person you're voting for. If that is something that is concerning to you, that you understand how they feel about it. Because at the end of the day, when some of these things come to the city council, just because they're coming to us and just because the ordinances say that they can apply for this, it does not mean that we as a city have to say yes. The reason a special permit is special is because there might be circumstances in which we can say no. Okay. And if one of them is exactly what I just said, right? So, and then there's a whole other list of things where we can deny these things. And I think we need to be more prudent about it. I really do. I understand that people have a right to develop their property. But we, as government officials, have a right to say, hold on, this doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. Now, granted, some of the things that are happening down in Commerce Way, we made a mindful effort that took months and months years ago to say, yes, we want some more residential property down there to mix it up.
Yep.
Right? To keep the balance. But now it's the flavor of the day. So perhaps it's time for us to revisit Commerce Way, and that's one of the things I'll be doing. It's in my district. It also splits into Ward 6 as well, and it's time to revisit it again. We did that a couple of years ago. Somebody, applied for a zoning freeze, so it does give people an opportunity to do that, but we shouldn't be afraid of it because of that either.
So let's talk about zoning freezes, because you've mentioned it a couple times, and I don't know anything about it, and I suspect many people watching won't either. So a builder or anyone can say, "Whoa, I see I don't like where this is going."
Anyone.
Okay, so tell me.
You have to, if it's your property, and the city is now saying, we're going to change the zoning. Okay.
But I bought it under certain expectations, and you can't do that.
And there's a law which you can utilize to try to freeze the zoning. Okay. So. And not a lot of people do it. I've been in office for a long time, and I've only seen it done twice.
And for the most part, we're not talking, I don't think, about individual homeowners and changes to our properties. We're talking about commercial land space, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I get it. The cost of property is so much. That's why people want to build these big, giant buildings. But maybe it's time to build some that are going to be owner occupied, right? So that's the dance. That's the compromise instead of the rental, right? And government is all about compromise. There's no doubt about that. But why can't we have that conversation? We need more people that want to have that conversation on both sides of the aisle. And that's from, the state, everywhere, right? And I think there's plenty of people on the Woburn City Council that want to have that conversation. The people that I work with today on the City Council, I know they want to have that conversation. We've had those debates in public. We all support that. Now we just need to put the rubber to the road. And I think you'll see that happening.
Well, I love to see that because I
Yeah.
love to see that issues that are important to the community are brought up and
the people
championed.
that serve on the council, they're very passionate about it, and it takes a great deal of time for them to be away from their families. And I really think you'll see some significant pushback moving forward, and as it should be. We need to do that dance, but more effectively.
So you raise an interesting perspective, which is sort of city council acts both as individual representative of the ward that you represent, but you also act as a body together. What are some of the things that outside of your ward in particular you are real champion for and want to make sure that we think about? We talked a little bit about building balance, right? That's clearly something the city council votes on as a whole being. What are some of the other things that you're particularly passionate about?
Well, and I think this is an issue that every ward faces, despite the fact that everybody always says, you know, Ward 5 and Ward 6, and traffic, I think, is a huge issue in our community, regardless of where you live. My husband and I just had this conversation about Cambridge Road, right, over on the west side. We went over to Wilson Farm for something, and we looked at each other and we're like, wow, you know, I know everybody complains about Washington Street, but gosh, this is tough over here, right? And it is, it's challenging. So it doesn't matter what part of the city, it's always going to, everybody at home, it's always going to be challenging on Washington Street. Our fate was sealed in 1959 when the interstate highway came through and they said, right here at this crossroads is where we're going to build some cool stuff, right? But we know that. We're taking steps to try to fix that. So how do we make those things happen outside of where we know the problems are, right?
Well, let me ask it. I'm going to ask, this is a really ignorant question, Darlene, but I look at things, for example, some of that traffic, not all of it, are people who don't live in Woburn, who work in Woburn. And right now, really, the only way to get to your job is take your car and drive to wherever your office is in Woburn. So you're going through whatever roads are. If we had some better intercity, it's not inner city, which is what I wanted to say, but you know what I'm saying. If we had ways for people who are doing that commute solely for the purpose of getting to their job, but better transportation within the city, and they park somewhere else, so they don't actually ever get the car into Woburn. Does that help? Does it not help?
Unfortunately, it's not just Woburn. So you said, you know, in Woburn, it's the people that are coming to Woburn for their jobs. So Cambridge Road, for instance, much of the traffic that's happening over there, it's not people, they're going to Burlington.
It's just people passing through.
Exactly. And, you know, believe it or not, Winchester has traffic. I work at Winchester Hospital. Highland Avenue from 7 to 9 in the morning looks like Washington Street. And from 4 to 6 looks like Washington Street. The only thing that looks different is that there's no big buildings around. But those cars are sitting there emitting fumes. And those are people coming from Medford and wherever. On Washington Street, a lot of the people coming through Washington Street are going to Reading because they built quite a few big apartment buildings a few years ago. So it's not, I don't know how to fix the big picture. I'd be lying to you if I said I did. I do know in government it's much easier to get smaller things done quicker. And that's one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for this Cedar Street on-ramp project, because that will significandly lighten the load on Washington Street, on Montville Ave, and parts of Green, and Mishawam. So in our universe, that will help everybody from Woburn that are coming to work to go in that area and that need to get home or who want to shop. How do we fix it outside of that? Gosh, I don't know. Yeah.
You know, it's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. There isn't any answer,
the public transportation, I think, is a great idea. We're right now, our state reps are pushing to get Mishawam Road reopened. That conversation was going on years ago when the Northern Bank and Trust building was built. That was going to happen. It didn't happen. It needs to happen.
And the reason it comes up isn't just a traffic thing for me. I happen to have a client who worked at Unicorn Park, and they had a lot of their candidates for jobs decline because they lived in the city and they didn't have a car, and they could get the train out to Woburn, but they couldn't get from the train station to the office. And so it was one of those things where the company at one point thought, well, maybe we'll have our own shuttle at certain hours, right? And they didn't end up doing that, but maybe there are partnerships with certain businesses that will do some things like that, right?
And we do have a couple of partnerships like that in the city.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, when these big proposals have been approved, that is one of the conditions. I bet you if we went through and just took a look who was actually doing them.
That's it. That would be a really interesting exercise, right?
And I think I'm going to take that on as a little homework exercise.
See, we had something productive today.
And oftentimes it's, the language is such that they may explore, it's never will. But you know what? We as a city should start holding these people accountable to doing more of it, because we can't control what happens within our area, right? Look at the hospital does it.
Like a
Winchester Hospital does it. No,
Yeah.
we get on a shuttle.
Yeah.
Most hospitals do.
Yeah.
Just because
employee parking is somewhere else from the main facility.
Absolutely.
And look, I know this isn't some magic fix, but I raise it in the spirit of, are there little movements that we can make that help tackle a challenge like the traffic challenge that we have in the city? And we're a city, and we're the intersection of two major highways, which has amazing benefits to us living here, also has some challenges.
Right. But the Unicorn Park, that's a great example, because they have so much parking there. It is hardly ever utilized. They could easily do some sort of shuttle or something.
Yeah, and it's right off the highway.
But they have to want to, right? The companies have to want to, and sometimes they need a little push.
Sometimes they need a little push and just a little help in thinking through it. It's just another thing to do, right? And it doesn't usually
But it
bubble
helps.
up to surface.
Think of all the things it helps. It doesn't just help the traffic, right? It gets all that carbon monoxide out of the air. It helps make us more green, and we certainly need to do that. And people hate giving up their cars. So if it's a comfortable shuttle and it's not that big of a deal and they're not sitting in traffic all the time,
I love it.
Maybe you and I could drive the shuttle.
Can you, let me just tell you, my husband will assure you don't want me driving anything. So just to be clear, I'm actually a very good driver, but I am directionally challenged. Even very routine routes will get myself turned around where I am.
Waze.
GPS was made for people like me. It was the best invention ever. It's my most used. This has been such a lovely conversation. I'm so appreciative of your time, Darlene. Before I let you go, I wanted to give an opportunity. I know that half hour went like that. Frankly, I think we as a city, to your point, should have lots of these conversations, right? And I think we're very fortunate to have city council representatives who are generally very available to the public, some more than others, yourself included, right? Are really good about sit down, talk, bring people together, get an idea. Who knows what real idea will come from that.
And let me tell you, that also goes for the people in our city that I couldn't do my job without. So the DPW superintendent, Inspector Quinn from Building Services, Jay Corey from City Engineering, Tina Cassidy, right? The mayor, all of these people, the superintendent of schools, all of these people are available to us anytime you want them. I mean, not anytime, but if you call them up, you get a phone call and they're willing to talk. You don't have to be an elected official. And I think that, again, we talked earlier, we'll come full circle, I guess, we talked about what makes Woburn Woburn. That's what makes Woburn Woburn. And I know people that live in other communities. It's very different. It's very different. So.
I'm grateful for it personally. I think it's great. I am very late in my life to sort of local government involvement. I worked and raised kids and didn't pay enough attention, and I now have the luxury of paying more attention, and this show gives me the opportunity to reach out and talk to people and answer all the questions. And for the most part, everyone, and yourself for sure, have always been very, very accessible, and I'm so grateful for that. Before I let you go, just to reiterate, anyone who has questions, I know you gave out all your contact information. Are there other ways that you are engaging with the community and want people to know about in terms of getting in touch with you on any issues that are important to them?
Again, the quickest way is by phone, especially if you need an answer fast, 774-259-6132, or my email, which is, again, listed on the city website, and Facebook, the messenger thing. I'm using that like email now, so all those things are great, but I will tell people, if you communicate with me through Facebook or through Messenger or online or something, I will always ask for your phone number, because there's most likely going to be a follow-up conversation to complete the circle or schedule another time to talk, because sometimes things take a little bit to execute. But that is the best way, and thank you so much for having me. I can't believe we didn't solve all the world problems here today, but and also people should go check out the Cedar Street website. I'm going to be putting a note up on, if you'll allow us to advertise.
Absolutely. This is about sharing information.
Yeah, we have a website because we just took it to the next level through the Central Transportation Planning. There's a whole, the next level of study is going on. So very exciting stuff, really happy about it, and I am so honored to be able to do this work with my constituency and hang out with people like you.
Yeah, I love it, and we can go take the hot chocolate sometime.
Yes.
Solve all the problems we didn't get to.
We'll go down to the mall, because once it's fully open, you'll have a better place to park, I promise.
I'm all about it. You can get me there even when it's difficult to park. There's milkshakes there.
Yes.
I'm going.
I forgot. Shake Shack. I forgot.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Darlene. And as always, Woburn, please continue to take good care of each other.